Not all mysteries start out as legends. Some are records, documents, and some locations where you can still locate, but weren't intended to come on in. Below the surface, across the desert, or stuck in time, there are buildings that are able to breathe, locations that murmur, and stations that come back for a long time once we've given up searching. This evening, 5 genuine secrets will be revealed to you by America, so unsettling that they were forgotten and buried in silence. However, the traces and the records are truthful and still exist. Are you prepared? After that, settle in, breathe deeply, then hold your pillow tight since you are going to discover a marked mystery. The Shaver Mystery in the disappearing Arkansas caves early in the 1940s. A man by the name of Richard Sharp Shaver dispatched a letter to a pulp magazine, Amazing Stories. He asserted that during an industrial job, voices started to come through welding apparatus rather than mechanical bursts of static or glitches. These were actual voices, hushed, authoritative, using an odd, nearly English tongue right into his brain. Shaver thought he wasn't experiencing hallucinations. He said the signals were coming from a great distance below the surface, transmitted by something extremely concealed, ancient, and incredibly living. He explained an old tunnel system beneath North America, and inside them a deteriorating species of creatures he referred to as the Dero, twisted traces of a vanished society, technologically sophisticated, mentally ill, utilizing forgotten machines from below to torment the planet above. It had a sound like pure science fiction. However, editor Ray Palmer didn't brush it off. He released Shavers as fiction, and the publication's number of readers skyrocketed. Countless letters came pouring in. Not admirers, but witnesses. Individuals who asserted that they heard and seen impossibly large cave entrances, lost time, heard voices, or discovered themselves within tunnels that weren't on any map. As time went on, actual stories started to come out of Arkansas. Trekkers in the heart of the Ozarks mentioned doorways with arched stones etched into hard rock sides, occasionally feeling heated to the touch, but not naturally silent. After taking one step, some people turned away from within, overcome by nausea waves or headaches that pound. Others never came back. Never. In 1987, 2 expert cavers made their way into a charted Washington National Forest cavern. They used fluorescent lights to mark their path. They had spare batteries, radios, and headlamps. However, 2 hours later, the cave altered underground. The walls lost its texture. The rock became smooth, metallic. Their voices ceased to reverberate. The string vanished after that. It disappeared. They appeared 30 hours later, famished, dehydrated, and more than 6 miles away from they went inside. Both asserted that they were followed by something the entire time, that moved without making a sound. Afterward, regional polls revealed unusual seismic irregularities and magnetic fields. Researchers discovered a cave inside one chamber wall that looked like it had been merged closed from the inside with a blast of heat. There was never a natural explanation. Geologists have referred to it as a seismic pocket. The locals refer to it as something else, Shaver territory. Even now, hikers continue to report hot flashes below ground. The sensation of being observed, abrupt confusion, or locating entrances that appear to disappear as soon as they turn around. If Richard Shaver lied, the land around him didn't understand the message. And if not, then something or someone has been ensuring our forgetfulness for decades. Because perhaps the true query isn't what he heard. What's still down is that they wait, listen, and watch. You have just been on the brink of something concealed. However, some buildings don't conceal below ground. Some people sit outside and murmur. Are you ready? The Dome of Nevada, the Whispering Nevada Dome. In the midst of the arid plains of Nevada, where fences are absent, towns are absent, and there is a dome and hardly any roads. It doesn't show up on travel maps. It's not indicated on hiking paths, but if you are where you track the soil and know where to look, track on Highway 6 around mile marker 51, you'll see it in due time. A geodesic building, deserted, fractured, and partially buried in solitude and dust. According to some, it was formerly included in a Cold War acoustics undertaking. Others assert that it was constructed by private investigators evaluating resonance fields during the 1970s. Not one official documents, but what individuals remember is the sound. Trekkers who have discovered the same report on the dome something. First silence, then pressure, similar to how the air in your ears is moving. After that, if you remain long enough, the murmurs start. They are not derived from outside. They don't recover from the walls. They don't go anywhere. They are present as if they've been there all along. Low voices that are neither clear nor loud, but persistent. Some claim to hear words, others hear names. One of the women who came in 2009 said it was similar to having a stranger talk right into your recall. She walked away trembling and asserted that for days after, she went on, in calm rooms, hearing the same voice. A collection of paranormal documentarians introduced luxury recording apparatus. The recorded audio was something unsettling. Weak harmonic vibrations that are barely 20 hertz, heard by the human ear, but recognized to induce apprehension, dizziness, and anxiety. They departed once one of them started to bleed through the ears. Subsequent investigation revealed no indications of gas, radiation, or structural instability. However, each and every electronic gadget they carried, GPS, audio decks, and cameras, experienced a persistent corruption in the firmware. Firmware corruption instead of data loss, as if revised. Then came the tales of individuals returning. In 2017, a lone tourist broadcast live from his journey to the website. His final words that were noted were, "I believe it's humming louder now. It's aware of my presence." The video ended in the middle of a sentence. Later, the phone was located, buried beneath 5 inches of desert dirt, still recording. No one is aware of what the dome was actually designed for the ancient military, but scholars, those who will talk, anonymously call it an acoustic test site for feedback. One even stated its purpose was to hear things that don't even echo. The building is intact, sand-blasted, alone, taking a deep breath of the heat in Nevada. Additionally, if you ever discover, stay inside it and don't talk. Due to there isn't anything there waiting for you. Voice. It's just waiting to happen. Outside in this open space, you may hear the murmurs. However, certain locations don't speak accompanying audio. They breathe and move. And in the highlands, they are waiting. The breathing tunnel of Colorado deep within the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, nestled between pine-covered mountains, worn rail beds and ridges, there's a train tunnel that had been abandoned and was closed in the latter part of the 1980s. Most maps don't label it, only a rough annotation on a survey of forests. It is denied instability. However, to the locals, the breathing tunnel is the name given to it. It's more than simply a whispered urban tale near fires. Former rail and hikers employees characterize the location as authentic and unsettling. A tube that releases heated air during a snowfall. Breathing in the wind even when it is completely quiet on the mountain outside. Birds avoid a location when machinery malfunction. The entryway and your personal opinions grow less trustworthy the longer you remain close to it. Let's return. The tunnel was first blasted in the 1920s as a component of a railroad line with small gauge intended to move wood. It had a rough carving, 300 feet through narrow, solid granite, enough to accommodate one rail car. At the time, employees reported odd things quite instantly. Tools in motion, absent, the reverberating sound of footsteps from the bottom of your heart, even when nobody was within. By the end of the 1940s, a few train drivers reported seeing lights passing in front of them through the tunnel, even in the absence of a scheduled train. One man reported something worse. He died during a winter run through the tunnel. However, the sun was in the sky as he came out, in the incorrect location. It was 41 minutes on his watch. He swore he heard someone ahead, whispering in his caboose despite the fact that the door was secured. Following a few minor collapses, and the line was shut down in 1984. A chain-link fence was installed over the opening of the tunnel. Warning indicators went risen, but the respiration continued. It was noticed by hikers. In the cold mornings, vapor would escape from the tunnel entrance that is enclosed, curving like smoke. But the temperature wasn't high, and it wasn't steam. It was rhythmic and steady, like though there was a soft exhale coming from inside. Students from nearby colleges carried out an unofficial inquiry in 1998. They introduced thermal sensors and pressure sensors, imaging. They discovered something startling. The tunnel's internal air pressure fluctuated in and out every 92 seconds, in steady, measurable pulses. It is unknown if a geological mechanism might account for it. It was worse with infrared imaging. The pupils snapped a picture, pointed it at the shadows in the hopes of finding a warmth flow of air. However, the picture came back with something else. A humanoid shape, towering and hazy, standing only past the lock gate. Nobody was there. Only that thermal, no footsteps echo disappearing in the following picture. The footage was received by a local news station affiliate, but it was never shown. Reporters later claimed that they were instructed not to promote intruding. However, the stories continued. Nearby campers say they have heard distant metallic sounds, train-like shrieking at nights, shattering within the stone. No tracks are played. No longer there. According to one park ranger, he at one time approached the tunnel too closely by itself. Although the wind had stopped, as he got closer to the barrier, suddenly a burst of icy air struck his chest. Stumbling is difficult enough. He popped his ears, and his nose was bleeding. He departed right away and never returned. By 2015, the fencing had partially crumbled and corroded. Explorers posted after breaking in a short, unsteady video on the internet. The tunnel is completely dark after only a few paces. The walls are dry, the floor oddly tidy. However, what unnerved viewers was not observed. That was the situation. Heard. The footage showed a dim hissing noise. After that, a lengthy intake, like air being drawn in by a vacuum. Next, quiet. The audio then began to rise. A noise, something striving, but not like breathing to take a breath. Then, rather than a phrase, a voice, only the implication of one adjacent to the microphone. The video was dragged inside days. Accounts are being removed. The initial untraceable files. Geologists dispute any logical natural explanation for rhythmic airflow in that manner. No, mountains don't breathe, one said flatly. It doesn't work that way. Acts in granite that has been sealed. Then what? Does it? Geothermal pressure is one explanation. Some claim it's a subterranean cavity system of some sort that science cannot understand. However, residents have a theory of their own. They think there was something trapped inside after the tunnel was shut. Something that breathes slowly, that adapts, that waits. And the explanation for why you hear it is since it is the first to hear you. A single hiker wrote in an anonymous manner, "It's not wind. This is a search. It seems to be sniffing me." An additional stated that she once went to the tunnel in complete quiet and heard her name return the whisper. Not yelled, not said, but murmured from the shadows. However, no probe is now formally underway. No alert on state maps. The only thing that rusted fence, and you can sense a chilly breath 10 feet away. If the tunnel is just empty rock, then another object is transferring the air. If it isn't, then it remains inside, breathing, waiting for someone to listen to enter. Some locations mutter, while others breathe, but some are deep within the ice. Things remain motionless until they come back. The weather station that resurfaces the weather station that has returned to Alaska's Cordova. Some locations are so isolated and neglected by the time that something vanishes, nobody takes notice. However, in the mountains of one of the final ones outside of Cordova, Alaska, actual wilderness areas on the planet, something didn't simply vanish, it returned. In 1994, the National Weather Service lost communication with a little automated weather station situated close to Mount A, just northeast of Cordova. The coded station ALX-104 was a component of a distant network intended to collect climatic information from the harshest areas of Alaska. It temperature transmission, barometric wind speeds, and pressure twice a day through satellite. A week in January, the signal ceased. Search teams were sent out weeks after the weather permitted. They couldn't find anything. Not a tower. Nothing, just a space of compressed snow and an oddity. A melting round indentation in the ice, about flawlessly slick, like something has been lifted directly from below. No source of heat was present, no wreckage, no footprints. The NWS declared it a complete loss. Inexplicable malfunctioning equipment. The coordinates were taken out of the system, and the case was shuttered after 20 years. In 2014, a snowmobile guide reported something odd. As the leader of two photographers via a route close to the same location, his GPS began to malfunction, repeatedly looping coordinates. He located it by following the oddity. The station was upright, undamaged, and clean again. The tower that appears to be towering tall amid the snow had not been contacted. However, it wasn't mentioned anywhere. Not in use, not in the NWS archives, but in inventory. And as they approached, they observed an event that caused them to pause in their tracks. The station was broadcasting on the initial frequency of ALX 104. They recorded images, audio, and even video from the faint radio signal from the unit, but when NWS denied any involvement once they reported it, understanding. According to the official statement, at the moment, no such structure is in use in that area. Nevertheless, it was correct there, sending meteorological information. Information that didn't make sense. The temperature measurements were continuously 11 degrees lower than the local averages. The wind speeds indicated wind, not laterally, but upward, and the barometric pressure changed in a flawless pattern that resembles clocks rather than an atmospheric one. However, the most peculiar aspect was the output within the data core. A tiny piece of thermal paper, February dated, was from 20 years earlier, in 1994. Still, it said. Subsequently, the weather station has disappeared once more. A group from an anchorage was sent to confirm its location. They discovered an expanse of snow that was undisturbed. Not even the tracks of the snowmobile were left. The guide who discovered it declines interviews, stating that he will not return and claims that once they departed, he felt as though they were being pursued. However, the snow behind them remained still. Think the station didn't come back, that it was constantly present, only outside of visible reality. Some people think it's a time phenomena, a loop's component loss in cold magnetic zones. But whatever it was, it left a message and it was broadcasting, not to us, but to it. Sometimes the missing thing never goes away. Watching is sometimes what's gone. There are locations where nothing appears, not even the individuals. And that's where our next destination is. The drone incident in Helltown. The drone incident in Helltown, Ohio. Located in northern Ohio, surrounded by roads in disrepair and overgrown forests, resides in what is formerly known as Boston Township. But to residents and whomever with a search bar and a feeling of fear, another moniker for it is Helltown. Just the moniker draws thrill seekers, investigations of the paranormal, as well as urban explorers. They come for the legends, shutdowns of the government, chemical spills, and spectral people on deserted highways. Although among the most peculiar and silent incidents occurred in 2016, it wasn't about what someone said this time. Witness with their own eyes. What a drone taken from above. Two amateur filmmakers, both local students of Kent State University. The goal was to shoot aerial photographs of the deserted buildings close to Stanford Road. The objective was a low-budget horror film, genuine, nothing major. They started the drone at 5:42 p.m. All went well, as usual. They captured decaying churches, vacant houses, and extended sections of woodland trails covered in roots. However, by 6:03 p.m., as the drone passed over a boarded-up old church, an odd incident occurred. The signal dropped, but it wasn't lost. It fumbled. After they retrieved the drone, the camera continued to capture. However, the video was tainted, alternating between regular video and abrupt distortion bursts, followed by a crisp, single frame, and a figure stood in the entryway of the church, faceless, only height, no distinguishing characteristics, posture, form, and the timestamp read 60317. The video then turned dark, and the pupils uploaded the picture online, and in a few of hours, the post was deleted without being reported. Suspended and deleted accounts. When they contacted the maker of the drone regarding the jumbled data, they were given a response. This type of file is not supported by any of our products models line. Forums for the paranormal blazed. Theories spread quickly. It was a glitch, according to others. Some said the photo was staged. However, one ranger from the area begged not to be named, shed an additional relaxing. No human, no day. The infrared silhouette does not correspond to any recognized biological structure. A cleanup crew was noticed a few weeks later, boarding up the building again in silence. This time, welded reinforced steel, closed from the outside, and no documents were given. According to locals, you may still hear a low buzz of a machine around sunset. Occasionally, if you're holding anything electronic, will occasionally malfunction. Once, precisely at 6:03 p.m., they claim that you cannot rely on the video. But what if it had nothing to do with the video? What if the drone didn't malfunction? Something that wasn't intended to happen. What happens if you saw that back? 5 riddles were just told to you as well. Too real to be fiction and odd to disregard. If you've read this far, you're not merely inquisitive, you're marked. Tell us in the comments when it's your turn. Which of these enigmas most troubled you? Which U.S. state should we focus on? Continue exploring. There is more to come. Concealed in time-frozen deserts and buried under your feet. Therefore, keep moving forward. Go here and select a video from your now to delve even farther into the dark. Press like if you haven't already.